All right, thank you guys. I'm sure you two are both wondering when I asked you back in the fall to do this, what you were getting into, but I so appreciate the leap of faith. Really the brainchild behind having this, why I wanted to have this conversation was I wanted to have teenagers and men and women and daughters start making the connection between how investing in our own health can translate into better performance in our lives. And for a lot of us, we can really relate to sports heroes because we look up to them. So I'm so grateful that we can bring this conversation and sort of put a new lens on it. So let's start with you, Tom. All right. So when you came in and bought the Cubs, what did you find in sort of the whole overall organization in terms of their wellness?
Yeah, wellness, I don't know. I don't even know that was a word in that organization, but very traditional, very old school. In fact, we came in the first year and we asked our baseball leadership if they had a nutritionist and what do we do for that kind of stuff. And they weren't really all that into it, honestly, and they weren't really thinking about it. So with a little bit of encouragement, the baseball guys went out and hired Dawn, which was an interesting experience the three of us shared in one way, shape, or form. Because she brought in some better food, and she was helping the clubbies, or the people take care of the players, try to cook healthier breakfasts and different things to try to raise our game from the nutrition standpoint. And I like to say that led to what I call the turkey bacon revolt of 2010, where several players cornered me one day. And including players that were a little heavy, telling me that's not the way we eat during the season. I eat whatever I want. Don't you tell me about turkey bacon. And so it was the beginning of a long process. But fortunately, since then, it has evolved dramatically. And Dawn and Kerry can speak to that better than I can. But it's a whole different world for players now. And nutrition is on the front lobe for all the guys.
That's amazing. Well, so Kerry, I think you're going to bring a great perspective to this because you came into the leagues probably before all this nutrition was a major focus. Yeah. And let's take a look at what you used to look like here.
I'm guessing I was a little puffier.
Picture here of Kerry when he first came into the league. Well, maybe it's coming. Next one. There you are. You look a little different, just going to say. Yeah. I'd like to know, what was your diet back then?
Well, I grew up in Texas, so my diet was fried food and eat as much food as you possibly can. That's just kind of the way I grew up. And obviously a lot puffier back then. But Tom's right. We felt like we were burning so many calories throughout the day that we could eat what we wanted and get away with it. Obviously as injuries happen and years go on, and I retired, and now I realized how puffy I was, how inflamed from the inside out that I was. I look back at my diet then, I'm like, oh, how many more years I could have got out of it? How many less injuries I probably could have had? But it was a change for us that we weren't. I came in the league at 20 years old, and I walk in the clubhouse, and eating healthy for me was the night before I pitched. I would try to eat grilled chicken. The one day a week I'd eat grilled chicken and try to mix in a vegetable of some sort and some carbs. Just one day a week, the night before I pitched. And then the rest of it was just whatever you want. But I came into the league, and I walk into the clubhouse, and first game's over, and the beers come out, and guys are sitting in the hot tub smoking cigarettes, drinking beer, and eating fried chicken, and I'm like, all right, this is where I belong.
That's good.
But then as the years go on, and I was talking to Tom backstage, not the first time, but one of the first players that came in and had a different approach to it was Mark Pryor. He came in, California kid. So he grew up eating that way, eating healthy and taking care of his body and kind of worrying about what he put in his body. And my wife Sarah and I went out to eat with him and his wife, and for our first dinner, tried to get to know each other. And we were ordering our food, and I'm getting the giant steak or the ribs and mashed potatoes, and I hear his wife order, and she asked for the salmon, and then she asked, is that farm raised or is that line caught? And I'm looking over at her, I'm like, we can't eat with these people. What is going on here? So I was in the middle of that change. I came from the old school and was there when Dawn came in for the Turkey Revolt of 2010, Turkey Bacon Revolt, and now to see where they are now as an organization is just mind-blowing. I mean, the amount of nutritionists that are on staff, the individual meal plans that guys have, and how these players have come up eating that way. They've come up and they expect it. They expect that when they get in the clubhouse, they're going to have everything they need, and you know, they do. I just think Tom bought the team about 12 years too late.
Well, I guess back to you, Tom. What made you decide to make an investment in hiring Dawn and a team of nutritionists? What did you see? Was there best practices in the league or other teams you were looking to that you said that might be a competitive advantage that I'm willing to invest in?
No, there really wasn't any other teams that we looked at. We assumed other teams were doing it. Just honestly, I mean, you just kind of look at baseball players and you'd say, well, I mean, these guys don't take care of themselves. I mean, physically, you could see, you know, some of these guys they're just overweight, and of course, you have to make the connection between nutrition and performance. I mean, it's just natural. It's just that, like I said, our baseball organization, we're all great guys, but very old school, and it just wasn't a thing for a lot of the older baseball guys. So we tried to just you know, shake it up a little bit and try to move us forward.
And so, Dawn, you come in. What year is this when you arrive at the Cubs?
I 10 years, the nutritionist for the Chicago Cubs. So that's for the mathematicians in the room. 2010 was the year, and I'll take it away for a moment because I will tell you, I was getting this call of like interviewing with you. And I was like, wow, this is going to be exciting, working with pro athletes who care about their bodies. And like, I'm so excited. Take me on a tour of your clubhouse. So they took me on a tour, and I thought I was getting like punked or like you know, whatever. Like I thought I was on candid camera because I walk in and I tripped over a Blue Bunny ice cream cooler. Okay, huge Blue Bunny ice cream cooler. And then after I recovered from that, my head swung to the left, and I saw a whole wall of every kind of soft drink you could want. You remember that wall? It was just a wall of soft drinks. And I was then, okay. Then I saw this little fridge, and I opened it up, and there were condiments and a couple of beers. And then I was like, looked in the freezer, and there was Tostino pizza rolls. And I was like, I said, where are we? Where is this? And they said, this is the Cubs clubhouse. I was like, oh, I have a lot of work to do, and I'm going to turn magic here. I am like, there was so much that I could do. So while everybody was in spring training, okay, I get all these great ideas of like, okay, take away the sodas, get rid of the Blue Bunny. Like, we are going to do turkey bacon. We are going to learn how to cook quinoa and kale. Like, I was pumped because I'm thinking, man, I'm going to really help these guys. They're going to love this. So, like, I was ready for when they came back from spring training. I was like, oh, I can't wait to introduce myself and tell them all the good things that I've done. And, I mean, maybe I changed just a little too aggressively. I feel like maybe that was the lesson learned because, it was a little bit like, where's our stuff? Who are you? And what is that green over there? You know? And so it was very shocking to me of like seeing, really where professional sports were just 10 years ago. And I will absolutely say you were, before any Major League Baseball teams, putting money, resources, time, energy into caring for players. Like what sports nutrition is really caring for players as a person, not only as just a performer. So anyway, Cubs really, and just over the years, over this decade, just the amount of resources and energy they've poured in. It was one dietitian, which has now turned to 9 dietitians at every level, doing unbelievable amounts of food. I mean, so what you've done, for the organization is out of control. It's like definitely best in the business. Best in the business.
So I'd love this story of when you first came in and I think you brought some green juices, something, and which I think, which actually, ironically, were made by Real Good, And we have those actual juices here for you today to enjoy. So make sure you see what Dawn helped devise for them to drink. But I don't think they always went over so well with the team.
Well, I mean, so, as you guys are talking about, things have definitely changed. So now, I mean, it is at the highest level. We do, every kind of juice, every kind of organic, I call it best in category. You don't touch a ketchup bottle unless it's the best ketchup that exists, with no sugar added, just tomatoes. Like, everything is best in category. And fun foods, like still hamburgers and pizza and stuff, but just made with better for you ingredients. Because fun is definitely one of the things that was huge for me in gaining more trust, is making sure that it wasn't just like all bok choy or something. It's like I let in with more like tacos and burgers and pizzas done in a healthier way. Over the years now we do things. One of the first times that I got into it with the player, like really connected with players, was when Sloan Park in Arizona was built out, and you guys built a little mini like smoothie station. And I was like, I know what I could do there. I can do all sorts of like fun sort of smoothie things. And so we started doing shots. And we did like beet shots for energy from the nitrates. We did matcha shots for the caffeine and L-theanine for their focus. And we started doing like a little medicinal food sort of lab right there. And players started coming over slowly but surely. And so that sort of was our gateway to getting even more robust food in there. It was like little baby shots of goodness.
That's awesome. Kerry, I know when you first started playing, you said you met with a nutritionist and they had some really wise words for you back then.
So before Dawn, my first nutritionist, I was 18. I just signed and went to Arizona for the instructional league, and they called us in after one of the workouts and sent us to the hotel, to the conference center, and sat us down. The nutritionist was going to talk to us about better choices, because at that point we're all 18. We just eat fast food, and that's all we were eating.
About your age.
Yeah, and so. So they called us in, and you need to eat more chicken and this, and of course one of the guys was like, I eat 20-piece chicken McNugget almost every day. And no joke, the guy's answer was, well, if you just unbread 10 of them, that's a start. And that's about the only thing I took out of that nutritional meeting, was that if I peel the breading off 10 of my 20-piece chicken McNuggets, I'm in step in the right direction.
You've come a long way.
Yes, so nutrition has definitely come a long way.
Well, I don't know if everybody knows this, but Kerry's a little bit like Tom Brady in a lot of ways. You've become really a poster child, you and your wife, Sarah, for healthy living and how beneficial it can be. And Kerry even has his own vegetable garden.
Oh, yeah.
We've got a picture of, which you're good to share.
My pride and joy.
Look at that.
Yeah.
Oh, boy.
Great, right at their house growing. Why don't you tell us a little bit about this?
It really kind of, my wife was on board. My youngest daughter got diagnosed early like 2 years old, multiple food allergies. So she was like milk, eggs, nuts, soy, wheat, beef, you name it. Like, so that's hard to find, food that she can eat in a grocery store. So it kind of started for me my wife jumped on board first, didn't want her to be eating strange foods by herself. So my wife started eating the vegan cheese and trying to go all the stuff that she could eat. And under no circumstance was I ready for that. She was eating healthy, and I was sneaking off to Five Guys, and so this went on for a few years. But I see my wife's energy and attitude and productiveness, and just her whole lifestyle changed just because of the way that she had changed her diet, and mainly for my youngest daughter. And so I slowly started getting on board and paying more attention to it, and then I started feeling better. And then I just got the itch. The more I got into it, I was like, I really want to know where my food's coming, what's being sprayed on it, where it's coming from, what kind of soil it's in. And so I started originally just in my garage in the wintertime, playing around with seeds and trying to see if I could get something to sprout. And I got something to sprout. I'm like, hey, I did that. I grew that. And then it started, and I just started planting stuff and made sure that I don't spray anything on it. And of course, the wife and the kids are, Farmer Brown's out in the backyard again, with my hat on, but it was therapeutic for me. I enjoyed it, and I wanted to see what actually I could grow for the family for the summertime, and so now it's in our 4th year, and it's growing. The garden's getting bigger, and now the kids are involved. They get out and they help me plant, they help me harvest, and I kind of put them to work. And we eat most of the stuff almost all the stuff that we grow. All the stuff that we grow, we eat throughout the summertime when we can grow it. And a lot of the stuff we'll my wife will make a sauce with all the peppers and tomatoes and all the stuff, and we kind of freeze that, and so we can kind of eat some of that stuff along, at least one meal a week throughout the wintertime too, to kind of get us through. But just kind of started as a hobby, and really kind of fell in love with it, and really enjoyed doing it.
That's awesome. It actually reminds me, I don't know how many, we have a fairly young audience, but has anyone here in the audience heard of the Victory Gardens? All right, we have someone right there. Perfect. I don't know, this is kind of a fun fact, but after World War II, the US government embarked on this whole propaganda campaign to get everyone to start growing their own vegetable garden. I think we've got a picture of some of the propaganda ads that would run. So it's amazing to think that in the 1940s, the government was encouraging all of us to grow our own vegetables. And a lot of it, too, was to boost morale. People felt really good when they grew their own stuff. And they also, this was a way to ensure that we were going to have enough food. So it's amazing to see how far we went away from that with the processed foods. And, you know, the truth is we in the great American way, we over-engineered, we over-innovated. We came up with ways to make our food last longer and stay longer with all the preservatives. And now I think we're making a major course correction because we're realizing that didn't really work out so well for our health based on the stats that we talked about earlier, with 70% of us overweight. So I think coming back to this realization that maybe having our own gardens is a really great idea. And I think when people like Kerry are showing us that it can be done, and I also think it's cool. So maybe if nothing else, we all leave here today with inspired to start our own vegetable garden too.
Well, not only that, it tastes different. It tastes different than the stuff you buy in the store. I mean, like it's a garden fresh tomato tastes different than the tomato you get at a restaurant. It just does, and it made me try foods that I would have never tried before, only because I grew it and put all the hard work and time into actually growing it. I'm like, well, somebody's got to eat it.
That's true. That's true.
So yeah, it's made me more adventurous eater, and my kids as well. So it's we're trying to keep it going.
That's awesome. So I wonder, back to Tom and Dawn, were there any players that had, I've heard stories that players have superstitions around food, and did you run into any of that in terms of pushback when you tried to revamp some of the nutrition programs?
Yeah, my only real experience was Marlon Byrd, who really got in my face about the fresh food, saying that I eat healthy in the off season, but I eat whatever I want during the season. And I'm like, that doesn't make any sense, man. But whatever. It's your body, it's your career. I guess I'd like to see you perform a little better because you make a lot of money. But but no, not really. I don't know. Dawn probably has better stories, or maybe Kerry.
Yeah, really, what you say though is like. Everybody does sort of have a routine. You even sort of talked about that. And I started becoming just more aware of people's routine and not trying to shake it up so aggressively, perhaps, as when I first started, and ask, what's your routine? Oh, you love to have a peanut butter sandwich right before. Great. Can we do best in category sprouted bread? I don't know. You want to try it? Just taste it. A day you're not pitching, you try it. Sprouted bread. Okay, let's do peanut butter that doesn't have palm oil, it doesn't have sugar. Let's try it, see if you like it. Instead of jelly, would you like to put on a couple of strawberries on there? How about I make the sandwich for you? You want to try it? So it's like, it was slowly trying to recognize and respect. I mean, I have utmost respect. I've learned so much about winning, attitude, and discipline from athletes. I mean, it has just been incredible to watch them. So a great respect of what they do, and all I tried to come in and is to say, okay, here's what you're doing, here's an option, let's test it out and see. And I'm a big believer in the word test. I love the word test for all of us. You don't have to believe me, right? You don't have to believe any of this stuff. It's like, but why don't you give it a try? See if you feel different, like how you're so inspiring when you say, like, oh my gosh, I just started seeing her, look more productive and happy. So I wanted to get some of that. And then it is not something you force yourself to do anymore. They all want to do it because they feel better. So they're like, I don't have to force matcha shots and collagen shots and quinoa anymore. It's because they've been bitten by the motivation bug. And the biggest motivation is that they feel like $1 million. That's
awesome.
Yeah.
I guess, Tom, in looking at the player beyond just nutrition, have you guys been investing in other areas like mental skills or other wellness?
Yeah, I mean, that's another one that's come a long, long way. Actually, it's kind of interesting. In 1938, P.K. Wrigley, who was the Wrigley family member running the Cubs, brought in a team psychologist. And this well-known psychologist, and he was supposed to talk to the players to try to get better performance, try to get them to like really focus on the game. And the manager at the time, Charlie Grimm, said, "Keep that head shrinker away from my players."
Yeah,
And I don't think attitudes changed much for about 70 years. I think it was a long time before people started to think more productively about the mental health of a player. Because I mean, baseball's an interesting thing. You have to really be in the moment, and you have to really be focused. And it's hard to do. You have so many outside influences, out of ballpark, in between pitches. You could be thinking about your girlfriend's mad at you, or you could be thinking about your last error you made or something. So, also in 2010, we brought in our team psychologist, but it was a kind of a miss. He didn't really do a great job of. Just the players didn't really respond to him well, and there was a few things we probably could have done differently. But since then, we've brought in more guys who have just a little better way of, kind of like Dawn was talking about, easing in to the routines. And it's gone from last year we had 5 mental skills coaches, and we have 2 at the major league level. Last year, Bob Tewksbury, who was a very successful major league pitcher who's written a book and got a master's degree in psychology, sports psychology. And I think he's one of like 23 teams now have a master's in sports psychology on staff. And so now it went from like, okay, we have one of these guys. If you want to go talk to him, go ahead. Then it kind of morphed into we encourage everyone to have at least some relationship with our sports psychologists. And then now, this year, for the first year, at every level of the minor leagues, in the pregame workout, they're setting aside 10 minutes for mental skills, which, of course, mindfulness, of course, in the concept of like not so much like staying always in the moment, but finding a routine that brings you back in between pitches or when there's a lot of distractions. Imagery, that's another big thing in sports. That's been around a little longer. And of course, that's, players imagining situations and executing through those situations to get those feelings and like get the neuropsychological side of those moments together. And then also just like concentration games. Another thing like John Lester's big with is like he plays, a lot of guys do it. They'll play games like concentration where like you flip over the cards, remember where the cards are kind of thing, those sort of games. And then they'll do it again with someone yelling at them, another teammate trying to distract them. Like, it's just kind of an exercise they do. So anyway, it's gone from no real staff on that to one person to now we had 5 last year. We do it, now we're doing it every game in the minor leagues. And it's also bilingual. A lot of Latin American players speak Spanish, so the exercises and the things they do are obviously in Spanish as well. So I think that's gone from, kind of like 1938, keep the head shrinkers away, to it's really, really an important part of performance.
Yeah. I don't know, Kerry, did you have any rituals back when you were playing to get your head in the game?
I did. I remember when the first guy came in. I came back from.
Remember that guy?
I came back.
Put on the uniform?
I came back from Cleveland, and it's the second day. It's the first day of spring training, and the guys are out throwing their bullpens, kind of working, and I see a guy that I don't know who he is, and he's standing right behind one of the pitchers while he's doing his work, and I turn to the other guy. Who is that guy? And they're like, oh, that's the head doctor. I'm like, why is he standing so close to the pit? He's like, oh, he's the psychologist. I'm like, that's not gonna fly. And so literally, it was my turn next. I walk up there and I'm kicking the dirt around again. I start throwing, and I can feel him like right behind my. I'm like, you need to go like 3 mounds over, get away from me. And I barked at him and like, get out of here. And we became really good friends throughout the course of the season. We talked not so much about the baseball stuff. We talked about life, and we became friends. But I was not ready for it, and a lot of guys weren't at the time. But I felt like I was prepared. Like I would sit down the night before a start, and I'm laying in bed, and I would go over, if I'm facing the Cardinals, the next day I would go over the lineup, couple times in my head what I'm going to pitch, how I'm going to approach guys, and later in the game, if who potentially is going to come off the bench, how I'm going to attack that guy. So I would mentally visualize going over, and you don't visualize bad pitches, you only visualize perfect pitches of how you're going to do. So I felt like I was somewhat mentally prepared and doing the right things, but no, the access and talking about that game, that guys are yelling at each other, that's great. I think they've come a long way.
One of the things that we've done, we have like a physical test where you put a clip on your ear and it just measures your changes in your heart rate. And there's like a box. And with the pitchers, like Kyle Hendricks suggested, well, behind that box, why don't you put a picture of the catcher? And you have like it's like a little circle. And as you relax and you concentrate or maybe unconcentrate, your circle gets smaller and you get it inside this other circle. But the minute you get distracted, it blows back up. And so there's actually it's come from it was logical, then it was like something people started to like, but now it's starting to be real science. And we're trying to build tools. I mean, some guys will do great with just some meditation exercises, I'm sure, but other guys like to go in and like have kind of gamify it or like just practice on this special little machine we built. So hopefully we're kind of ahead of the game on that and helping guys just stay present and execute at their highest performance level.
That's awesome. Miracle mornings all around.
That's what I'm back to what I said earlier. Wish Tom would have bought the team 12, 14 years ago. Earlier.
Well, but now you're inspiring all the rest of us to make healthier living a lifestyle. So you guys are really doing wonders in that area. I don't know if there's anything else before we're going to open it up for some questions in the audience. Unless there's anything else, Tom, you want to share with us about the upcoming season?
It'll be awesome.
Okay. We're going to have one of those videos again?
Yeah.
All right. Well, we have a little fun here today for the questions. We have something called this talk box, which I had never, a catch box, never seen one of these before. So we're going to ask Kerry to ceremonially throw out the first question.
Awesome.
And the fun of this is you can talk right into it and ask your question, and then when you're finished, the person who wants to ask another question can raise their hand, and we just toss it around there. And no pressure. You don't have to throw as well as
No
Kerry,
pressure.
but good luck. All right. So
Just
with
fire
that,
at somebody.
yeah.
First throw, you got a head.
Thank you. Very random. Thank you so much, everybody. This is awesome. I had a question specific, I think, to something I think a lot that the Cubs certainly run into and all of us run into, which is travel and how you deal with nutrition and the challenges of that in an extensive travel schedule. You obviously have spring training. You have 81 away games at least. We hope for more. So are there any tips that work for any of you, particularly to in that realm when you're away from your home and the easiness and convenience of that?
Well, I can talk a little bit about just, again, how many resources, time, energy goes in from the Cubs to the nutrition program. Every single meal that they are served away the last few years, I hand select what goes on the actual buffet. So when they arrive at a clubhouse, it's a dietitian approved, still fun because my idea is sports nutrition meets fun. So it's still stuff people want to eat, but it was all self-selected. So what that translates to actionable things people can do is do your homework before you go, right? And so anytime I'm traveling, I'll just look at the hotel I'm staying at. Is there one place that I could do? What's on the hotel menu? I do a little bit of prep work ahead of time so that when I'm there, I'm not flustered.
Yeah, I think the other thing that we do poorly or maybe wrong is we're getting better at sleep. We've been doing some sleep studies, and we've been sending guys home with monitors and trying to get better. But the players, once again, they're very set in their ways. And we had a playoff game in Washington that went really late a couple years ago. It would have been so much smarter for us to go back to the hotel, get a night's sleep, then fly to Los Angeles the next day. But there's things that are just so traditional. Everybody just wants to get on a plane. They don't care if it's an all-night flight and just get to the next place. That's one place where I think we could improve. I think it's one of the traditions that there just got to be better ways.
More rest.
Yeah.
Maybe you can grab their phones at 11 p.m. too, like the Texas Tech team.
That would go over great.
Oh God, there's another turkey gate for you.
Yeah. GDP gate. All right, Michael, you want to throw it to someone else who's got a question?
He threw it to me.
All right, perfect.
Hi. This question is maybe mostly for Kerry, but everybody. I think that as a mom, I've been doing a good job over the many years of cooking healthy, shopping healthy, Mediterranean diets, kind of maybe the way we lean. But now I've got a 16-and-a-half-year-old son who's growing like a weed, finally. Anyway, he's growing and he's athletic and he's in sports, and I'm like, okay, I'll buy the sugar cereal now. I'll buy this, I'll buy that. He can eat anything. I'll let him go to Popeyes, whatever. What would you say to your son who is skinny as a rail and growing and healthy and wants to eat like that?
It's because my daughter's a peanut, right? She's 10 years old, so it's hard. You want to be like, here, eat this, eat cookies, eat Skittles, just eat something. But I know that we're setting her taste buds up for failure. Like later, it's going to be so much harder for her to break that habit and get off of that and actually go to regular food, healthy food, real food. It's tough. And now he's 16. He probably has his license. He can drive and get his own food and do that stuff. But it's a slippery slope. It really is. I mean, Dawn, you can probably talk a little bit about that. But there is a fine line, right? You want him to eat. You want him to get bigger. You want him to grow. But you want him to grow and get healthy from the inside out and be healthy. And so those choices are important.
I'm crying. Did you just hear what he said? Like, that was beautiful.
Right?
Harry, that was beautiful. You want them to be healthy from the inside out. And so that's my talking point, because your son is not alone. Every single athlete that we have, especially at like the minor league level when they're growing, and coaches even, will be like, they can eat whatever they want. Nutrition is not what you look like. It isn't. It is not your body weight. It is absolutely stuff that goes on the inside that you don't know. So I really work with a lot of coaches and the younger players who don't know yet, of like, don't put your weight in this at all. It has nothing to do with it, actually. This is all about energy, focus at school, and tests. I like tests even for kids. The idea of try this for breakfast, see if you do, focus better at school. I mean, 16 is old enough to be able to start taking charge of testing things on your own body.
And I would second that. I do that with my kids. We don't eat the perfect breakfast every morning, but the mornings when they do have an avocado and an egg, I'll say to them, be mindful of how well you paid attention in school today versus maybe the next day if we're running late and they have a bagel on the go. When they get home, I'll say, did you get hungrier around 10? Just start to be mindful of that, make those connections, and I think that's really helpful. All right, any other?
And I would also say, like, I've played with a bunch of guys that ate what they wanted. I was one of them. Unfortunately, I didn't switch those choices until after I was done playing. But the guys that didn't, they're just, I see them at Cubs convention. I see guys when I see them, and they're blown up. They're unhealthy. They don't feel good. They're having all kinds of issues, and they weren't able to change after they. It's hard to break that habit later. It really is.
I too have children that are both athletes and competitive athletes. One competes at very high levels nationally and internationally. We've had an epiphany in the last, say, year and a half where she really puts the connection between performance and what's going into her body. But my question for any of the three of you is, what I can't find information on is how much protein, how much carbs. If we're following the lists that you gave us, Elizabeth, what should be the mix if you're competing at really high elite levels?
I'm just going to put in a quick plug. Anybody at elite levels like that should have a personalized plan. So I would say one session with a sports nutritionist, we do that with the guys now, is like everybody's needs are going to be different. Protein needs are going to be different depending on the day, depending on how the training is, if it's off season, on season. So that investment in a personalized plan is actually very smart.
Yeah. I don't think there's a set number. I think that changes throughout what you're doing. Activity, if you're in a strength phase or if you're in endurance phase or something like that, the protein is going to change depending on your levels of activity.
All right, I think we have time for one more question. Go ahead and toss it, Diana. Woo.
Nice.
All right.
My question is, so in the off season, do all the players, do you still work with all the players in the off season with food?
Oh, it depends where they go, what they're doing, but most of them leave nowadays with a personalized plan, and some of them will hire chefs. I remember you were one of the first players ever to ask me. Do you remember asking me this?
Yeah.
I remember being in there and my jaw dropped. He said, "Hey, I'm thinking about eating better. Do you know a chef?" That's how I gave you Kendra's name.
Yeah.
So I gave him Kendra's name because I was like, I can't believe this player is asking to do chef stuff on his own. And so a lot of them, years and years and years after you has started it, really, now we'll even hire chefs that I'll talk to their chef to try and get them a plan with somebody who's cooking for them. So yeah, I will say I work with them, but a lot of times they'll go out and even get extra resources in the off season where they live.
It all started with turkey bacon.
All roads lead back to turkey bacon.
Yeah.
Well, and hopefully now with our 20 for 20 map, everyone's got a great resource for if you're either getting back in the kitchen to cook, but also 20 great places around our beautiful city that you can eat and find healthier, more delicious choices for yourself. So I can't thank you all enough. I hope that everyone has enjoyed this morning and that you feel inspired and empowered to take charge of your health and to start many, many more miracle mornings. And with that, I hope you go out and enjoy some of our partners out in the lobby here and just make it a great day, everyone. Thanks for coming.